Hello everybody, welcome back to this playthrough of Thea the Awakening, and in today's episode we are going to continue through the tutorial. At the end of the last episode we'd renamed our village, we'd renamed our villagers and we'd started to get to know them. But what I really want to do in this episode is get on with the tutorial and get on with the battling. So if you are thinking about buying this game, then obviously you can have a look at these things and see what you think. Right, so I think we are on the expedition. Yes we are. So as you can see, when your expedition's actually in your village, they are split. So if you press the R button at the back or the L button, then you can just scroll between them. Now we want the expedition and we want to walk out to Theodore's tutorial to see what happens there. I will continue to go through this quite slowly, just so people can get a feel for the game and see if they like it, things like that. Especially the battle mechanics. The battle mechanics will take quite a little bit of explaining and going through from what I understand. Right. So, when we've arrived at Theodore's tutorial, obviously you can see we've travelled from the great village of Columbia to the tutorial, and we have a few options. What we really want to do is go on this one with the green flashing question mark, because that's how we're going to progress here.
Theodore welcomes you. Well, hello there. I see you're finding your feet and making first steps into the world. Well done.
Yeah, okay. I'm just thinking Theodore does sound kind of interesting. Like that is how I sound when I don't put my voice on for the YouTube. That is how I sound normally. Okay, that might not be true. So, so what now? We need to continue on this.
Events such as meeting me will occur throughout your adventures. Sometimes they are random, sometimes predestined, and always varied. Events can occur when you're out exploring, but also globally, or within your village. So remember, leaving your settlement unattended may be dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know if we covered that in the first part, but you do need to keep people in your settlement. I think I did mention that. Okay, so right, events can occur at any time, both within the village and out in the world. Anything else?
Many events will ask you to bring stuff or do things in order to move to the next stage. I asked you before to gather food and fuel in your village. So you can gather resources in your village, but also by setting up a camp when you're out exploring. To set up camp, stand on an empty hex and choose the tent icon from the mini HUD.
Right, okay. I think at some point we will cover setting up a camp. It's not particularly different to being in a village. It is a bit different, but the principles are the same. You can gather and things like that. Yeah. Okay, so we know how to set up a camp, and we went through sort of gathering last time.
Good. Now events can lead to conversations or just random disasters, but they can also lead to challenges.
Ooh.
To show you what I mean, track down a pack of boars nearby, marked by a blue question mark, and bring me back their bones.
Alright, so this is where we actually look at the battle system for the first time when we get towards these boars. And as you can see from going through the tutorial, we have 1 experience point and plus 1 point towards our science. And then as you can see, that is reflected on the little science thingy and the book there. So we've now got 1 out of 15 for our new tech, and we have 2 out of 10 for experience points. Now, capturing these boars or dealing with these boars and bringing back their bones will help us once more with these points. So I think we're fine with gathering. I think people are doing what they're supposed to. So we will go over to the boars in a minute, but before we do that, I'm not sure I actually covered the turn summary. So basically, the turn summary allows you, after every turn, it's like the notification. So if you've seen the Civilization playthrough, at the end of every turn, maybe if we've not got any amenities in a city or housing problems, it comes down the right hand side to inform us that we need to do things. Now this is very similar. So we have resources spotted, which is what we unlocked at the end of the last episode, and we found out it was there quite a way away. We have villagers idling Columbia apparently, so we'll have to look to see to that. Well, we could do that now really, couldn't we? So William's the only gatherer working, so we have 2 spare. So both of these have only got 3 gathering skills. So Jane can go and work on the vegetables, and I think we're fine for wood right now. So Edward, you can join Jane on the vegetables as well. So we don't have incredible gathering skills for these, so obviously Jane has 3 gathering skills, so she can put an initial 30 towards the 60 for the vegetables, and then because Edward will only be a secondary helper, he can only add another 15, so we're still 15 light on getting towards the 60, but I'm sure we covered that last time. Okay, so we're gathering wood and vegetables, that's fine. Crafting wise, I think everybody is busy. And construction, we're not really at that stage yet. Cool, right, so Colombia is fine now. Now we're going to move back towards the tutorial. So, we've done that, and now we are going to travel. So I always do it like that. I don't know why, I just think it's easier to control people by using that. And as you can see, the big white circle is everywhere within our movement for this turn. So we'll go over to the bars. We'll not be able to get there this turn, but next turn we will be there. Ooh, a river. Ooh, something that looks like some ruins or something. We'll have to maybe explore that as well for something a bit more exciting. Right, so I think we've dealt with everything. We will...
Thea is not an easy place to grow up in, but alas, grow up we must. One of your children has matured into a young adult and is ready to join your village and rebuild Thea.
Okay, so the child killed a mouse with its bare little hand. Looks like a prom... Oh, okay, so we're choosing the class for this person. I think we have... I don't know what to... I'm not going to bring this kid up as a crafter. I think crafting's not so interesting. I think it'd be nicer to build a story around maybe a warrior, or at least a gatherer we take around everywhere. We have a few warriors, but we started with more gatherers anyway, so shall we go with a warrior? I mean, it's always good to have people that can fight, isn't it? Yeah, we'll go for a warrior, so obviously the child killed a mouse with its bare little hands, which is kind of scary. Looks like a promising warrior.
Becoming an adult is an important rite of passage. The whole village celebrates this joyous occasion. The youngster places a food offering at the altars of their gods, in thanks and in hopes for a good future.
So we have acquired Trezor. We might change his name to fit the theme of our characters, which was Kings and Queens, by the way, of England, because I couldn't think what else to do. So we will celebrate the rite of passage, or the writ, whatever. So, okay, so 1 XP point, more XP, very nice. These look like angry people. Good job we're in the day. These really do look angry. Now, I think we'll go for the boss first, and then if we have to deal with these guys, we can do. But right now we will go for the boars. And as you can see, these are mobile, so a lot of the people you come across, I've noticed, don't actually move. A lot of the challenges are static. Like, the boars are stayed there, but obviously we have a roaming party here that could either attack our people, but if we'd not left anyone in the village, our village could be vulnerable as well if they just bypass, so that's why you have to keep people in your village. Can you move this turn? You can. Yes, so we will take on the boar challenge, which is part of the tutorial, and as part of this...
You find the boars Theodore told you about. There is only a couple, so it should not be too hard. However, instead of a straight fight, you can try to do a proper hunt. If you have the right skills, that is. Or better yet, you can go all native on these beasties and wrestle them to the ground. Not an easy option, that one.
Okay, well... I like the idea of wrestling them to the ground because it just sounds funny, but let's explain a little bit of what I understand about this. So, as you can see, we have 4 options here, the last one being perhaps leave it for now and come back later, but we're not going to do that one. We have come to get the bones of these beasts, so there's no point actually just running away. So, we can either go hunting, which is one of them, we can wrestle them to the ground, which is another, or we can just plain old fight. Now, I think, from my understanding, the plain old fight is the standard one. So I think with that, you're kind of going to need your basic attacking and defending skills. But for the other two, it's a little bit different. So we have a hunting one and a physical one. Now I will bring up the tutorial now, or the page on the tutorial which goes through all the battles. But just before we do that, I want to explain what the skulls mean. So essentially, the more skulls there are next to the challenge, the harder it is. So the hunting one, for example, is only a 1 skull challenge. So that is easier than the other 2. But either way, whichever one we chose out of the 3, I think would be fine. Now what I will do is I'll bring up the help thing by pressing the plus button on my Pro controller. And that is going to allow us to look through the tutorial. So events, we know about that. And now we can go, obviously, it says here, events, difficulty and hidden answers. Now, I don't want to go through everything, but it says, obviously, with the skulls, the more skulls they are, the harder it is. And we can have up to 10 skulls, it says, which is quite scary. I think potentially difficult of an action is represented as 1 to 10 skulls near that option. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll open up the rest of the topics. and we're going to go on to, I think it's a bit further down. And if you're struggling with anything on this game, this is quite useful because it explains a lot of it. So if you read over it once or maybe twice if you're struggling to understand it, this will help massively. This sort of help guide, this tutorial guide. So let's go down to, where is it? Card minigames, yes, card minigames. We'll go through a lot of the basic rules in a minute when we actually get into it, but I just want to have a look at challenge types because there are quite a few, and then we have the skills from them there. So there are a number of different challenge types, and as you can see, we have a couple of them on this list currently available to us when fighting the boss. So there are 9 challenge types. You can fight, which is classic combat with weapons and armor, where your villagers may get wounded. That is risky. With this one, people can die, and I've had people die from this challenge type. We've also got diplomacy and social, so convince your opponent with words and wisdom. We've got against disease, resisting an illness or finding a cure. I've not actually come across that one yet, so that'll be new when we get to that. Against hex, removing curses or other effects of evil magic, also banishing the unliving. Spooky. Very, very spooky. And we've got physical challenges. This is one of them that are actually open to us as well. This is another one. So challenges that require raw strength and endurance, intellect, knowledge and intuition for solving puzzles and logical thinking challenges. Then there's the sneaking, getting past without being noticed, hunting, challenge to trap and or kill an animal. That is the other one that's available to us. And finally, tactical. So that is strategic, thinking for maneuvering units in battle. Now, and I think it's important we read these paragraphs because it's pretty much what I was going to say anyway. So each of these challenges uses a different set of character skills during the card minigame, which is what all the battles are set in, is a card minigame. Skill set used in a particular challenge is displayed right before the challenge starts. For example, intelligence defines your attack power in the intellect type challenge, so every different challenge type has a different attack and defense power. But so it says intellect defines your attack power in the intellect type challenge, but in breaking a curse type challenge becomes a tactical skill called counter offense. So each of these skills has a different role in each of the attack, and we'll go through them now because it's probably not quite clear from that. So let's go down to challenge skills. And I think this will help massively in sort of explaining where we're at with this. So let's start with just a normal fight challenge, which I think is one of our options. Now, each of our characters has a different array of strength. So warriors are very good in damage and armor, I think, for example, and crafters are usually good in speech and will. So you can see that these people are going to be important in different challenges. So when we do a fight challenge, and I'm not that up on the game, but we're just going to go up. We're going to go over the basic offense and defense. So if we're doing a fighting challenge, we're going to need damage and armor, but we can actually get die in fighting challenges, so we have to be careful. In a diplomacy challenge, your 2 key ones are speech and will. In cure sickness, will and health. So as you can see, for the diplomacy, the big defense is will, but when you're trying to cure sickness, the big offense is will. So they're very different skills. Like, they're used in different ways and different skills are often necessary. In hex, magic and will, so we have will being used again. In a physical challenge, which is one of the 3 we currently have available, strength and health are massive. So if we're going to wrestle some boss to the ground, we need to be strong, obviously, to wrestle them, but we're also going to have to be able to take a few hits because we're fighting wild animals. Now, in an intellect challenge, intelligence and will are important. Will is a good skill here, isn't it? In sneaking, it's stealth and health. In gathering, in hunting, it's gathering and health. Now, you've got to think we have gatherers on our mission, which is why the hunting option is available to us for taking down these boss, because we have a number of gatherers who could possibly, in a less risky situation, allow us to take on the hunting challenge. So we're not really risking much health, we're not risking dying really, but we can get around it that way. In a tactic challenge, you've got intelligence for your offense and will for your defense, and that is it. So I've been over a few of them. You probably won't remember them, so it's good to keep coming back to this, and I will keep coming back to this page just to help us figure things out. So, the hunting challenge is the one we're going to go for because we have some gatherers in our party, and I made sure we did. It's sort of the least risky, I think. Well, it's less risky than the other two. I think definitely a plain old fight because people can die there. Whereas I think in hunting, it's either you can't die or it's much less likely. But we'll go for that.
Great. You have the right skill, in this case gathering, to enter into an alternate challenge. In non-fight challenges, the wounds you get during the challenge do not carry over after it finishes, meaning you have less of a risk of dying.
Okay, yeah, so the wounds you get during the challenge do not carry over. I think your health can still be affected, but it is a less risky challenge than just basically hunting, because I've had, basically fighting, because I've had people die doing that. Okay, so now we're going to go into the actual battle mechanics. So, we have started a challenge against 2 of these boars. Now, how do we resolve it? If you don't want to go through the whole combat thing, maybe you watch this and you think, nah, I can't be bothered to go through the combat thing, you do have the option there to auto-resolve. Now, I haven't done this. I think it's more interesting to sort of go through the combat yourself. I think it's one of the strongest points of the game if you can get your head around it. So I wouldn't recommend auto-resolving, but if you want to, the option's there. So we'll begin combat, and as you can see, it's giving us sort of the important bits to know about this. So our offense there is gathering, and our defense is health, and we have all the other ones there, which we saw on the other page, the tutorial page, and we also have some weapon effects. So we'll begin combat, and we'll go through the combat tutorial now. So, before each challenge, your people's cards are split between offensive and tactical hands. Now, if you've got sort of 4 people, I think it's sort of split 2-2, so it's split evenly. With 5, I'm not sure if it's always 3 in the offensive hand and 2 in the tactical, but I'm sure we'll figure that out. But basically, your cards are split as evenly as possible. Now, your offensive hand, and we'll go through this more in detail, is your hand you can throw into action, and it's the key skills for that one that matter. So, basically, because we're using a hunting task, we want our gatherers in here because they're going to have the strongest attack and defense for this challenge. So we currently have Mary in here, and she has a defense of 8, as we can see on her card here. So the shield, the number next to the shield is her defense, and we currently have 8 health out of 8. So she's carrying 8 health. As she takes damage, that will come down. So that's when people can get injured and stuff. So Anne has 8 health and Henry has 12 health. However, what we're really looking at and what we're going to need to do damage in this is the attack. Now that's next to the sort of dagger thing. So Mary has 4 attack, Anne has 4 attack, and Henry has nothing because he's not a gatherer, he's a fighter. We've got to gather to do this hunting task. If it was just a straight fight, Henry I'm sure would be much more useful because his skills would be better. And we could probably do with trying to get her involved, but... Right, so he says, before each challenge your people's cards are split. Yes, we've been through that. Now your tactical hand's a bit different, and we'll go through it when we get there, but basically you can do, either send people to get closer, or you can use their special sort of support skills to help people or to disrupt the enemy. But we will go through that when we get there. So here you have the option to reshuffle if you don't like this draw. Now, you can turn the reshuffle off, but I don't. I quite like, because I'm a new player, having the ability to reshuffle. Now basically what reshuffling means is that we can change our hand. So right now it's randomly being drawn that Mary, Anne and Henry are in our offensive hand. And we've got these 2, whose names I forgot. Why is he not showing their names? That's Elizabeth, isn't it? And that is... I can't remember. Is that Victoria? Who cares? But we can redraw that. So if we reshuffle, we could end up with, say, Elizabeth in the offensive hand, and maybe Anne would make her way over to the tactical hand. So that could be a possibility. But right now, I'm pretty happy. Henry's a bit useless, but I don't want to risk getting a really, really bad hand in the offensive hand, because we can only reshuffle them once. Okay, so you will learn more about challenges and their mechanics once the challenge begins. So we're not going to reshuffle. I'm reasonably happy. We will probably have to send Victoria in, I think it is, as quickly as possible. But we'll keep going through it. It'll be easy to demonstrate. Right. So it says, welcome to the card minigame. please pay close attention to this tutorial as the mechanics are fairly complex. To win, you need to eliminate all your opponent's cards. Let's begin. So, one of the things that happens here is that who goes first is randomly drawn. So we could have arguably gone first if we'd have been drawn to go first, but on this occasion they've been drawn to draw their cards first. Your deck is made up of your party members. The stats, damage, type and tactical skill come from their equipment and skills. I think we've looked a lot at that. And that's sort of the gathering skill for attack, things like that. So your deck is divided into two hands. Now as we saw, we've just seen that before, that our deck was divided. So we've got Mary, Anne and Henry on the offensive hand there, the people we're going to send straight into battle. And they are on the left hand side. Whereas our tactical hand, which is Elizabeth and I think it's Victoria, are on the right hand side. The starting player in each round is decided randomly. Now we went through that. For this occasion they've been chose to go first for whatever reason, but often you'll go first. It's kind of just random. Well, it is random. You begin with the preparation phase, where you play your cards. The fight phase comes after all cards are played. So yeah, you basically draw, everybody draws the order the cards go in, and then they fight, and then if a second round's necessary, you go into that. This number shows how many cards you can play this turn, and that's randomly calculated. Well, it's not randomly calculated. You'll always get to play at least one, but it depends how many cards you have go up to 2. So we'll actually look on this. There is a little bit that says how many times. Okay, so the icon shows how many cards you can play this turn. So this, we're talking about the number 2 we've got down there and the number 1 shown on the screen. It is always at least 1, but for each card in your deck, there is an additional 10% chance to play another card. So with 10 cards in your deck, you will always be able to play 2 cards in your turn. Now, because we have 5, I think there was a decent chance we'd get to play 2, so we've actually managed to get 2, but that's how that's calculated. Each card is characterized by 2 very important values. Now, we've talked about this. We have the attack, which is the dagger. For example, Henry's attack here is 0, and the defense, which is the shield. Now, Henry's defense here is 12. Attacks deal damage, lowering defense of an attacked card. So it's very much like any kind of game you'd expect. If they attack, we're going to lose defense, and our defense is going to go down, and if it gets to 0, we are out. So when defense reaches 0, the card is eliminated. Characters may have different types of attack, depending on the weapon in fight challenges or special skills in the non-fight challenges. So these are very interesting. So some attacks may have additional effects such as poison or leech. Now we'll click on here because that'll help, but I'm pretty sure I know what they are. So we have a special poison attack. Now if you kind of use the poison attack, the damage is doubled when it is dealt to a character with less than maximum defense. So if you have a character that's maybe even just 1 lower than the maximum defense. So if you remember, Henry had 12 defense, but if he's just taken 1 damage, the poison attack will double whatever damage is then done. So for example, say Henry, he's got 12 damage, but he's taken 1 damage already, so it's down to 11. If he's then poisoned attack with a 4 damage, so you'd think 11 take 4 is 7, but that 4 would be doubled to 8, so it'd actually go down to 3. So against damage opponents, poison is very useful. Leech is all leech damage dealt during an attack restores the attacker's defense. Now that's pretty much more straightforward, but it's obviously very useful as well. Now, so they're the 2 sort of special types, but there are 3 actual attack types. So there's slashing. This deals regular damage to 1 enemy only, with additional rules. So you're kind of just doing the basic attack, I think. Blunt. All damage remaining after killing an opponent is then dealt to the second opponent. So if you have an attack of 12 and the first defender has a defense of 10, so you've attacked with your 12, they're on -2. They can't go to -2, they can only go to 0. So the extra 2 damage you've done to them goes on to the next opponent. So obviously not your card, but their card. So their next card would then take the additional 2 damage. And then we have piercing. So card dealing piercing damage is placed in front of the last card and deals half of its piercing damage without additional effects to it, but only when the last card is an opponent's card. So card dealing piercing damage is placed in front of the last card and deals half of its piercing damage. So I think it just does additional damage to the last card basically, as long as it's not yours. But if somebody has a different interpretation of that, feel free to let me know down in the comments. Right, so they're the attack types. Okay, so we can move on here. So in fight challenges only, your wounds will be carried over from the challenge and can lead to death of this character. So that's crucial. So only in fight challenges will your wounds be carried over from the challenge and can lead to death. So if you can avoid a fight challenge, it's often wise to do so, I'd say. That's my thinking anyway. I'm quite cautious a lot of the time though. So offensive cards are for direct attack and are placed on the battlefield using A. So as you can see, we can only place our cards. We cannot kind of do any of the interesting things we have on the right side. We can only use the attack and defense on these cards in the offensive part of our deck. Cards are added to the end of the queue. Some weapons and skills can modify an existing card's position. So for example, because they've already played that, they have played the 6 defense 3 attack hunting card. If we were to play Mary, her natural position would be to go to the right of the hunting card and therefore be the second card in play. So they'd get to go first and Mary would get to go second. However, there is things we can do with our other tactical cards, and this is where they come in handy, to get us to the front or whatever we want to do. So if you wanted to use the first action card, that is how that would work. So the first action card would push, if we use Victoria's first action card, first action ability on her card, it would push Mary to the front, but Victoria's card would then kind of be used up. We couldn't use that again. But if you want to do that, that's how you do that. So tactical cards offer support. They can only be played using their skill. So I'm not sure if it comes up with this in a second, but as you can see, every one of these supporting things such as confuse, counter-tactic, counter-offensive, etc. all have a number next to them. So confuse has a 7 next to it. Now what that 7 means is that is the level of card you can actually use that skill against. So, for example, we have Marianne and Henry are all level 3 cards. In fact, we're all level 3 cards. So, we could easily, if we were using that confuse, we could use it against ourselves. We won't, obviously. I don't think we can, but that is the level of the card. So, maybe a better way of putting that is that we can use confuse with Victoria as 7 against the hunting card that's currently being put in play by our opposition because it's only a level 4 card. I hope that makes sense. If you've got any questions, do leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. Support actions will affect the rightmost eligible card in the queue. So if you use a support action, it's going to affect... I don't think you can choose which card you use it on. It uses it against the most eligible card in the queue. Skill descriptions contains more info, but I think we're fine with that. When both you and your opponent pass a turn without playing any cards, so maybe you've played all your cards or you just don't want to play a card, then the fight phase begins. So you're out of the preparation tactical phase, you're into the fighting phase, and all the cards go against each other, and you get to see what happens. The fight phase is resolved according to the card's queue position, from left to right. So as I said, right now, if we place Mary next against this hunting card, the hunting card will go first, Mary will be to its right, so Mary will go second, etc, etc. Cards take their turn in the queue and attack the closest enemy on either side randomly. So yeah, attacking the closest enemy on either side randomly. I'm sure you'll be able to see that. Once cards have no target on the battlefield, damage is dealt to the remaining cards in hands and discard pile. Okay, so once cards have no target on the battlefield, the damage is done to other cards. In the first fight phase, if the first fight phase does not conclude the challenge, a second fight phase follows. I'm pretty sure there's only 2 though. If both fight phases do not conclude the challenge, a new preparation phase begins. Okay, so we're going to get into it now. We're going to give it a go. We don't have the sort of strongest hand in the world, but I think we have enough to take care of these balls because they only have really 2 hunting cards and we have superior numbers. We should be able to pull this off with relative ease. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get somebody on the battlefield. So I think probably it doesn't matter whether it's Mary or Anne, they are very similar skills, but because we've been talking about putting Mary first, it probably makes sense to put her on there. And as you can see, we've just used one of our movement points, or sort of thing. We've used one of our action points, but because we have two, largely because of our larger deck, we can now play another card. And I think the sensible thing to do would be to play Anne, because then we've got our two strongest cards in, we should be able to do a fair bit of damage. Now, there's one other thing I want to talk about, and that is getting closer. Now, we can't really use Elizabeth for this challenge. She's a bit useless, because she's a warrior. She's focused on more of the sort of fighting, not gathering of things. So her skills in this battle are not very useful. But Victoria, on the other hand, can get closer. She has 5 attack and 6 defense, so she'd be very useful in this battle. But if we told her to get closer, she would skip a turn, because she will go in confused, she'll go in slower, she's coming in late to the battle. So we're not going to put her in yet, but we will put her in just to show. And that is shown by question marks, is that she's kind of not going to take action immediately in the first phase. But our first thing to do will actually be to play Mary, get our 2 strongest cards out there. Okay, so we've used both our moves now. We've used both our points. So the only thing we can really do at this stage is either retreat by pressing B and give up, but we're not going to do that, or we could end the turn and see them play their next card. Ooh, so they've got piercing damage. So we've just seen piercing damage at work there. So that is only a 3 attack, 3 defense card though, so there's nothing to be worried about here. And as you can see, they have played that card from the right-hand side of their... Well, they've played it from the tactical element of their deck, basically. So that has come in. They have basically done what we're going to do here. They have gone get closer. So as it says here, allows character to enter the battlefield, but by doing so, it gets confused and loses its attack in the first fight phase. So although they've come in with piercing damage, done a tiny bit of damage to Anne, they're now confused. They can't attack straight away. And we'll see this now when we push Victoria into battle. So we're going to tell her to get closer. We might as well get her involved. That's my key thinking. And we've got a +2 health there as well. Okay, so there's no point playing anybody else. We'll just get on with it. Okay, so we've ended the turn, and now the battle begins. So the hunting card at the left attacks first. We've then attacked to our right. Anne's then come in and attacked the hunting card. And I'm pretty sure, because... Okay, so Mary's almost died, but everything's going to be fine now. Okay, it happened very quickly. We have won the battle, by the way, because we've took both of them cards out.
You stalked the boars like a pro, and caught them unaware. Your loot may not be as plentiful as a straight fight, but you did not risk getting wounds, so your people will not have the danger of dying now.
Right, okay, so there's a few things I want to talk about from that battle and going forward. So, as you can see, if you watch it back, and I do urge you to do so because it happened quite quickly if you're confused, look at Victoria. She did not attack on that first go. Now, she didn't attack on that first go because she went in confused. We told her to get closer, so she wasn't involved. She was waiting for the second phase, and it never got her along to her in the second phase because she was the third card played, and we dealt with them before that. But the important thing to note is she did not attack in the first phase of battle there because she went in confused. And we won the battle, which is pretty nice. Now, the second thing to talk about here is that your loot may not be as plentiful, so if you don't go for a straight fight, often your loot isn't as strong as it would be in a normal fight. So you need to think how important is the loot to you. Now, I just didn't want to risk anybody dying, so we went for something special. So if you do go in for a different sort of challenge like that, the loot probably won't be as plentiful. But however, we have got some decent loot, and we will go over that in the next episode. So we've got some leather, some bones, and some meat. And we've got 1 XP point! Yay, how exciting! Now, I think this episode has run on for quite a while, and I want to edit and upload it. We've gone through the battle phase in the main part of this, and I think that was really crucial to have sort of an episode dedicated to going over the basics of battle. Obviously, as we go forward, we're going to keep coming over that more and more. We have treasure over here. Nice. Let's see how that goes. So we've got a few things we need to do in the next episode. We need to... Well, I wonder if we'll get involved with these. They've only got 1 skull over them, which suggests to me it won't be too difficult. But we also need to look at Theodore's tutorial and probably go and have a look at some of that treasure. So we'll do that in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. If you are enjoying, and whether you're a new subscriber or an old subscriber, please do remember to let me know what you think in the comments. Leave a like on the video if you are enjoying, and if you've not subscribed, please do feel free to subscribe. Also, ask me any questions you want in the comments. I'll try and answer them to the best of my ability. So thank you very much for watching today. I hope that helped, and I will see you in another video soon.